Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. We're glad to have you. Hey, if you haven't done so, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, 30 different channels. And while you're doing that, go ahead and go on over to globalinvestoragent.com. It's a new website we just created to show you all of the what we call global investor agents in the U.S. There are a majority of them in the U.S. in 28 states now, by the way, and they all have been trained to work with us investors. That's what they focus on. So they're not pointing out the pretty carpet and the chandeliers. They're actually helping you identify, analyze, and negotiate on and off market deals, which is really important. And by the way, they have access to every single parcel in the country, commercial, residential, every owner, every parcel. So make sure you go out there and check out the profiles and grab one for yourself. I'm one myself, and that's how I knew these guys, because I trained them. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and get to the podcast. We're lucky to have Janet Fields on. So Janet, first off, thank you very much for participating in today's podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Gary.
Yeah, and you're in one of my favorite places on the planet. You're in South Carolina, near the coast, near Charleston. And if you wouldn't mind, Janet, I love your background. We just had a brief discussion, of course. Would you mind filling people in just briefly, and then we can that'll give us some context for them to pull from, and then we can get into the meat and potatoes. How's that?
Absolutely. So Oak Trust Property Management is, Oak Trust Properties. We're actually a family company, second generation family. My dad started it officially in 2009, but he started planting the seeds back in the 80s. He has exited, and now I am running the business. I've systemized it to reduce as much risk and loss as possible for our investors, and we've systemized this great machine so we can really just deliver the most value as possible for our investors. We want it to be able to anticipate all their needs and to be able to give them the best returns possible. That's why we're here. When our investors are winning, we're winning.
Yeah, so, I agree. And what you're doing, it's absolutely critical, because it's, well, first off, everybody can relax, because real estate is actually probably the most forgiving commodity that you can invest in. If you make a mistake in a stock market, it's going to hurt, and you usually don't have a plan B. In real estate, you can always remodel, you can refinance, you can sell, you can get different tenants. There's all kinds of things you can do. And as long as you don't get too hasty or panic, give enough time, real estate is always going to pay off for you. It's like you're building cash flow and equity at the same time. Plus you get tax benefits that you don't get in the stock market. I'm not knocking the stock market. I'm in there too.
Yeah.
But to me, real estate is really the place to be. So if you wouldn't mind, give us an example of what a person might expect in Charleston. The reason why I'm saying this, everybody listening, South Carolina right now, guys, is one of the best places to invest in. It's more money is moving to South Carolina than almost any other state on a per capita basis. People are investing there because they're smart. So if you wouldn't mind, I know you're right outside of Charlotte, kind of describe to us some of the properties you have, maybe a case study or two.
Yes.
And we can get into some details there,
So our average rent right now, I believe, is $1,575. And our typical homes that we see are single family, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage. Everybody wants that fenced in backyard because everybody's got pets. And when I say everybody, I mean 70 to 80% of the renters. And if you don't have that backyard with the fence, they want the screened in porch. So that's the second. What we're seeing is we see very low inventory, just like the sales market, and properties are moving very quickly. Our pipeline of applications is very full. We're having to turn people away, which is extremely disappointing because of the amount of inventory that we have available. So everything here is just moving very quickly. We have rental properties from A, Bs to Cs across Charleston, but people are really starting to look at the As because people from outside the area are bringing their money in and buying like brand new homes in master plan communities with all the amenities next to the work, next to the restaurants, next to the parks. we have residents who are looking for lifestyle. So they're investing in those same things that we invest in.
Yeah.
That's the gist of
Yep.
what's going on here, and just massive growth. We have so much growth with the master plan communities that are coming in, and they are attracting all this business as well as our cities are bringing in lots of business. So I believe we have Boeing, we have BMW, we have SRAM, I believe. We have all sorts of people just coming in here. Michelin, bringing in, thousands of jobs, just
Yeah.
massive growth.
Yeah. What's so cool about this podcast, and for you particularly, Jan, is I'm actually familiar with South Carolina, and I can tell you the folks that we call upstate, which is the up towards Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, that whole where the triangle is, they call upstate, Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson. They just wanted to let you know that they missed their Michelin and their BMW.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's where they used to be up there. Back in the old days. When I say old days, I mean they moved in there back in the 80s and 90s. But you know what? Down the coast, anybody listening here, I'll give a plug for Charleston, guys. It is one of the coolest cities you could ever go to. It's a small city, right? It's a tertiary city, but so many outdoor cafes with outdoor seating and live music all over the place. You know, the weather, I mean, in January and afternoon in January, you typically can go out and just wear a jacket. You don't ever have to wear snow boots and stuff like that. And it's almost been one of those quiet places for all these years, but now we can track money. We know how to see the movement of dollars, and it's clearly changing. So anybody's thinking about it, get it now while the getting's good, And the other thing you mentioned too, Jen, is the A properties. That's something we learned too over the years is, in the beginning, most investors start off with the C properties because it's less expensive, and the ratio of cost basis to rents is very favorable, but you have more headaches. There's risk. That cap rate represents reward and risk, But the A properties, guys, boy, I got to tell you, man, that's where the long-term wealth is. I mean, you'll cash flow, you'll have less problems, a better asset that's going to appreciate more. And so kind of the bread and butter, do you do any condos too, Janet, or
we have a few condos.
Okay.
This is a much smaller percentage, but yeah, we absolutely do the condos.
Yeah. Now, whereabouts so can people invest? Like, I'm sure some of your properties started off with you said it was family, and your dad, he probably was the initial investor, but is it now where you're actually receiving funds and people can invest with you, and then like they'll provide the funding and you provide the properties? Kind of describe that a little bit. What's that relationship look like,
So typically we have investors come to us with a property already in hand, and they turn it over to us. They've shopped around or they've experienced other property managers here and they're looking for something different and they come to us. We do have some agents that connect with us when they have an investor already in hand who's shopping here and they're wanting to shop our rates at the same time. We have people come to us who are doing the rent to builds and testing out the waters here for that. We have entire neighborhoods that are single family home rentals right now, which is interesting. Entering that's really mind blowing to me. So it's a variety, but most of the investors come to us already. Now, with our investors that we have signed on with us already, we like to go ahead and pass some of our deals to them because we have a good bit of accidental investors. So they're wanting to get out sometimes. So we are able to pass those deals along. That's typically what we see. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. So now let's talk about the management part of it. You've got over 600 units under management, and I know from my own past, I earned a lot of gray hair from the School of Hard Knocks. And but would you mind? Let's just spend some time on management, because I know at the end of the day, that's probably the most important thing. I mean, getting the deal is obviously important. So the two parts are acquire the asset and manage the asset. And where you come in is the management part. And that's where you maintain the value and you keep the cash flow going. So let's just take it one step at a time. What would you say is the first thing that an investor needs to know? And if you could talk to them before they buy, what kind of things would you suggest to them,
Yeah, so you're going to want to know what market you're looking at and what are your days on market in that area. You want to know, I would start talking to property management companies and like, how long are those properties sitting? So you can start thinking about your rent loss. And then what are they renting at? Because you want to know, your cost for your profits. So you want to put all that stuff together before you get there. You're going to want to know the taxes. You want to know your insurances. You want to know your real estate rates. You want to know I think I already said insurance. You're going to need to know if you're going to have your own team or if you're going to be the supplement for that and how much that costs. So basically there's like a whole punch list of items that you need to do before you go look at buying.
Yeah.
And when you go to buy, you need to focus on the numbers instead of the picture. Instead of like, that cute little house, you need to be looking at the numbers. Does it cash flow? Do the numbers make sense? Because if the numbers don't make sense, I mean, it's going to be a really stressful experience.
Yeah. Well, what's really cool for working with someone like Janet guys is, you can reach out to them first. Okay. And they already manage units already, 600 units in probably multiple neighborhoods, multiple areas. I mean, why not do the research first, pick their brains and ask them, where did your family have the most success? I mean, what type of units, what part of town? I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, is that possible for them if they were to look you up and see you online doing their due diligence? Would it be okay for them to reach out ahead of time before they even?
Absolutely. We love to give as much information as possible. We also have a marketing plan that we'd like to give away. If you go to our website, oaktrustproperties.com, we have a marketing plan that you can just download on there. You can set up a call with our BDM, Christina. She's always happy to talk to anybody. She can get you comps to see what's going on. If you have a few properties you want to look at, or if you want to see if there's anything comparable in any of the other neighborhoods. Because we have some places that in the past 3 years that were really fast markets. And now we're definitely seeing a steady shift down the interstate towards inland Charleston. And those properties are moving faster. So we're seeing a little bit of shift in Charleston. And only people that live here and manage the market are going to know that. So you're not going to want to just go get an inexpensive property out in the middle of nowhere, because like we said, people are looking for the amenities now. People want the living, the lifestyle, not just a house to live in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. So, all right. So let's say somebody's coming down from New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, places like that, and they really they like South Carolina. And here's why this is important, guys. Let's say you're coming from Pennsylvania. To get to Florida, you're looking at easily 16 hours. To get to South Carolina from Pennsylvania, you could be looking at 8 to 10 hours. You can do that drive in a day. So it's very appealing knowing that in mid-January, you can still go out and play golf and tennis. Yeah, you might need a light jacket, but that's, if you're used to the New York winters and Ohio winters and a jacket that's nothing. That's summertime. So when you do decide where you're going to invest, in this case, particularly South Carolina, I would definitely call Janet, email her, or go to the website, Oak Trust Properties, right?
Correct.
Just properties, yep. And then the next step would be this, Janet. So let's say somebody, they're qualified, or they've been pre-approved, they can get financing. They know what type of property they want to get, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch, for example. And they work with you. Do your company, do you also do sales, or is it strictly management? And we do both sides of the brokerage?
We don't do sales right now at the moment. It's definitely something that I would like to do in the future. But right now, I really like to focus and master before I go to the next thing. Yeah.
Yep. You're doing that. What's interesting is I like your attitude, because you're focusing on the one core business that you have right now, and you're good at it, you're perfecting it. So let's talk about that business. So somebody, they're going to get a house, and now the first thing they realize is they make an offer. I better make sure this thing gets managed, because I'm living in New York or Ohio or somewhere else. What do you look for in clients when you take on a new client? They're just buying their first property, for example. What kind of questions should they be asking, for management?
A lot of the questions that we get are the two big fees that are on most investors' mind is the leasing fee and then the monthly management fee. Those are the two big fees. So you would want to call around and see what everybody's fees are. But then there's also that management agreement that you sign, where basically that's the timeline. That's the story of how your property is going to be managed, how the company is going to deal with any situation, conflict between you or the resident, or any legal liability issues that you might have. So you kind of go through there and see if you can find any other dollar signs and see if that's the way you want to function. Do you want to pay like one big upfront fee that's just flat month over the month? Or do you want to pay your leasing fee with your management fee and then touch points along the way to keep your costs down, except for, you pay as you go, basically. So you need to find somebody who fits the way that you want to pay and you feel comfortable. And there's all sorts of property management companies everywhere. So you'll find the right one. And then the next thing is, how do they communicate? Do they tell you what's going to happen? Do they make you feel comfortable about the process, or do you feel lost and in the dark? So, a good property manager would be able to tell you, just like any other business, what's the next steps. So you talk to them, you walk through the conversation. At the end of the conversation, you get an action plan, and then you say, okay, this is what you can expect from me over the next 2 weeks, or expect to hear from me every Wednesday. We'll give you a marketing update on your property, show you who's been in the property, any feedback, any applications that come in. So you want to be having that game plan pushed to you, and for them to be able to tell you what to expect. If they can't do that, it's probably not the right partner.
Yeah, I agree. I know when we were building our portfolio, we just like what your family did, which is this really, this is, I was really looking forward to this podcast because there's so many similarities and we learned some valuable lessons along the way. So we built our management team. That's what we turned into the management business, and we were able to attract other people as a result. But when it came to the greatest potential for profit for the owners, and we talked about ABC properties, is there a sweet spot? Like, is it really the B properties, or like for me, and this is just my age. Over the years, I just focused more on the A's. I know I was spending more on them, but I just wanted less headaches,
Yes.
And over time, they grew up more in value, but the cash flow wasn't always as great. But at the time, I already had cash flow from the other properties. But is it really? Would you say it's more based on the owner's demographics, like where they are in life, or do
Yes.
you? Okay.
Risk tolerance, and how much you want to, how many decisions you want to make on this, how passive do you want your income, how much cash flow do you want? I would say those are bigger thought points than what's more profitable. It's not really, I would definitely look at your risk tolerance and how much you want to put time into this. Is this something you're handing off to a property manager to take care of, so it doesn't really matter, and you're just going to put the money in your reserve funds and they're just going to take care of it? Or, are you going to be approving everything so that C-list property is not really passive income? It's a complete nightmare.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is easier to manage? Is a single family home easier or better, or is a condo like easier or better? I mean, there's probably differences between the two.
Yeah. So condos, we have a hard time getting things done because you have the additional HOA. You can't just go in and get things done, especially to the exterior. You have the HOA if there's a roof leak or a siding issue, like anything on the exterior of the home or the adjoining walls. There's some extra red tape involved to get anything done. And there's also typically shorter term, just like an apartment. It's, people are there for 2 to 3 years. So single family homes, they don't perform as well as apartments. They're just a little bit lower, but they are a little bit easier to manage in the way that you can do whatever you need to on the interior, the exterior of the home without too much red tape involved, and you can do it quickly. And the residents, they typically, they're going to stay longer because they did want a home in a neighborhood with the amenities. It's a different type of client or a different resident.
Something else I noticed too is with the single family homes, generally the tenants do stay longer, but also they're more inclined to not just cut grass, but paint and do all kinds of neat things like it was their own place. I never saw that in any apartments, but I definitely saw that at some of the single family homes.
Yeah, it feels unique and it feels like it's theirs. They want to put pictures on the walls and do all those things. They have more ownership over it, the feeling of ownership.
Yep. Now, how about the next important thing? So they say they get the property under ownership. They have, you managing the properties for them. What when it comes to screening tenants, to me that was always like, huge. Boy, if we win that game, if we get the screening right, everything else is a lot easier. You know, I mean, what
Mhm.
any tricks of the trade or secrets that you can share as far as
Absolutely.
screening people, Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the numbers. So a lot of the things one of the biggest things that I see that individual investors do they mess up on is they treat it like they're hiring somebody or they're going on a date. Sometimes I've even heard where they take an applicant out to lunch and they sit down with them. So now it's an emotional attachment instead of data and numbers. So you definitely want to avoid that. If you can stay away from the sob stories and everything, you're doing good. So we want the income. It needs to be 3 times what the resident or what the rent is. That's pretty standard. You want to know that magic number wherever your threshold for stress is for your credit reporting. You want to know that they've had a job for a couple years. You want to know if they've been evicted in the last couple of years. You want to check into that. If they have any bankruptcies, that can be prohibitory for their finances. So those are the kind of things you want to start looking for. And you should have standard numbers of what your threshold is and what your tolerance is before you start collecting that information, because
Right.
it's really tempting to hit that easy button when somebody comes in and they're just below what you think is okay. And then it just keeps slipping, just keeps devolving.
Right.
So setting your standards early and going into that way and just sticking to your standards is like the best way to move forward to be able to get that outcome that you want at the end.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's especially when the economy is shifting and say there's now there's more vacancies on the horizon, or worse yet, people are losing jobs. So there's you've got the potential for rents being paid late and things like that. A lot of that can be minimized, guys, to a large degree by simply screening properly and only letting in certain people within the law. You can't discriminate.
Yeah.
But
Read it.
money is not it's not a protected class,
Not yet.
Yeah, right.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Okay. Now, before we started recording, you actually mentioned this earlier. When it comes to pets, I I I had what I call a no pet policy, only to find out I still had pets because
Oh, yeah.
typical example, you rent to this nice young lady, professional, going to work every day, doing a great job, and she gets the new boyfriend who happens to be, unfortunately, the devil or something like that, and he gets in trouble and gets her a brand new little puppy dog or kitty cat. Nobody's thinking of, let's look at the lease and see if we're allowed to. They just, oh, I got a little puppy dog. And they got puppy dogs. And the neighbors realize, oh, they've got a puppy dog. So I ended up having what I call a pet policy. I just say, you know what, I'm gonna allow pets, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna advertise it and then tell them, hey, it's its own separate screening. They get their own application like it's something special,
Mhm.
And it turns out it allowed me to attract the better pet owners because they were willing to do that and pay more, and repel the bad pet owners because they're thinking, boy, this guy's pretty serious about the screening and stuff. I better take my couch eating dog and go somewhere else. But how do you have a unique way? Do you allow pets that most of your owners allow them, or how do you handle that?
We definitely push pets, since it is, close to 80% of the tenant market. If you say no to pets, you're really closing off your success.
Mhm.
So of course we push for that. And what we do is we have a pet fee. That's just an upfront pet fee. It's a pretty good size fee.
Mhm.
So that kind of makes sure that they have skin in the game and they're not getting that money back. That goes, to the company or to
Yep.
the owner, depending on whatever management agreement you have to sign. And then we've also found out that it's nice to have a really big unauthorized pet fee. So if we have an unauthorized pet fee that hurts, we get less surprise pets.
Aha.
Because once the pet enters that property, you can say anything you want, but that pet probably isn't going to leave. You're just going to play like hide and go seek with that pet. So we just go ahead and fine them and say, you know what, this is it. This is the way it goes. You get the fine. So
Yeah.
we have really good luck that way. And we don't have a separate application. We do all of our applications in-house because we really want our hands on those. That we collect all the information in-house and keep a picture of the pet. We ask for their shot records, their all their rabies, all that stuff. We keep it on file. And if we see a different dog at the property, we give him that fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Another thing we had to be careful of is that thankfully my insurance guy warned us. He said, look, you have to know that your carrier is not going to cover damages from certain types of dogs. And I can't remember all the breeds. I think it was unfortunately Rottweilers and pit bulls, I think. But
It's-
I don't.
yeah.
maybe Doberman Pinscher, German. I think there was like 5 breeds.
The quote
Which,
unquote aggressives. Yeah.
yeah, it's a shame because I love pets, but they have the data, they have the statistics, and they just can't take a chance.
Yeah.
So
We
um,
find that credit score really correlates with people's, willingness to pay. If they mess up in life, that credit score says that they're worthy, even though they can't prevent the pet damage all the time, but they're going to pay and fix it and correct it and move forward. They're not
that's a
just
good
going
point.
to, skip out on you.
Yeah, credit score. They will never publish this, but you're right. It's almost like character score.
Yes,
So yeah,
100%.
I guess we're allowed to say that, but maybe the courts can't say it. Who knows? But so moving forward now. So let's say everything is going great, and then unfortunately there's crisis hits. Somebody gets divorced. Somebody loses a job. Somebody passes away, and we've had all those things happen. And you're dealing with it because it is a human relations business.
Mhm.
It's a housing business, but you're dealing between food, shelter, and clothing. You're providing one of the three. But what kind of guidance can you suggest to people who they get that phone call and are like, gee, hey, Gare, boy, unfortunately I lost my job and I just can't pay rent. Do you think I can have some extra time? And we all get that as property owners, we're all going to get it at some point. But do you have a certain process you use or procedure
Oh yeah.
to help minimize be the business person, but also the compassionate human being? And I guess there is a way if you look for it, so.
Yeah, so we follow the lease to a T. If rent's gonna be late, we have to start evictions. We can tell them, hey, this is part of the process. If you pay 100% by, this date that we both agreed on, which is also in your lease, we can stop the evictions, but we have to follow the lease to the T, because if we do not, it weakens our case in court. So there's not any room for, too much grace other than, the human side and the way that we present it. We work for the clients, so we need to be able to reduce that risk. We can't say, okay, yeah, no problem, we won't post evictions until the 20th of this month, because then we're 30 days out if we need to make any moves, and then we're losing lots of money. So we follow the lease. We
Yeah.
follow the lease, and we were respectful in the way that we deliver it, and we're completely upfront and honest, and we just continue on that road.
Yeah, it's interesting. In real estate sales, the old saying for agents is, location, location, location. But a property manager, we used to say, it's in the contract. It's follow the
Yes.
contract. It's in the contract. It's all right there. You treat
Yep.
everybody the same. Everybody gets treated fairly. They give it the opportunity. The court's going to give them 10 days, 20 days, what have you. And
Mhm.
it can be a challenge, but at the same time, it incentivizes people to get off the butts and actually take charge and go get job interviews and um, seek assistance from local charitable organizations.
Mhm.
So, because some situations are permanent and some are only temporary, and
Exactly.
we've learned in the past of the people they have plans. I'm going to send my resume out to 20 people. I've got 3 interviews already lined up, and I know one person is already still going to make an offer. That person's probably going to make it. But the
Yeah,
person that says, well, gee, you know what? I guess I'm just going to have to play the lottery. That person's probably not going to make it.
they're gonna limp along until it's just,
Yep.
crisis.
Yep. So now when there is a turnover, um, I know you mentioned earlier that having a vacant unit, that's the biggest, um, you know, challenge to profit in this business, because that's your gross receipts coming in on the front end. On the back end, you still got electric, gas, water, insurance, taxes, the whole 9 yards.
Overhead still
So
there.
yeah, what do you suggest to people? What's the process for when somebody lease is coming due, they've notified you they're going to be moving because maybe they're buying a house. And
Mhm.
what's the process? How do you minimize that downtime, I guess you will, the vacant time,
So in our third quarter of the lease, about month 8, 9, 10, around that area, we go out to the property and do a property evaluation. We see what's going on out there. Does everything seem about the same as when we went out there? Is any red flags? So then we know the condition of the property. We can run comps. We can find out what the resident's going to do. Kind of just in a casual conversation. We're not putting anything in writing yet. And then we go to the owner and say, hey, this is the condition of the property. Here's our recommendations. If any, these are things that most likely need to be done now. Here's things that can probably be done now if you wanted to, or we can get away with it until the next tenant. We kind of give them a loose game plan that they can pick and choose from. And then we tell them, hey, here's our market comps. We think it's going to be between this range and this range. We really recommend that you gunning for this one. And, you know, how do you want to move forward? So we give them those plans and we move forward with it. If they don't want to renew with this resident, or this resident's decided to move, then we know that that list is no longer just like an action plan, like
Right.
supposed act. We got to start putting that into place. So the minute we know that the resident's leaving, we're already putting that list together. We already have our vendors that we use all the time. We know which order everything needs to be done in. So we, you know, we're not going to paint after we put new floors in, so we don't get paint all over the floors. So we start organizing all that, so it's just done in 2 weeks or less. We want to turn that property as quickly as possible. The more efficient we are, and the more, you know, the more efficient we are, the more money we save you, because each dollar, each day that that property is vacant, you lose money and I lose money, and I don't want that. So I want to get that property filled with a qualified resident as soon as possible. So speed and efficiency is the name of the game.
Yeah, you got it. That vacancy, you got to aggressively almost attack it, because
Yes.
you can't let it slide. It's just every day, you know, that's, you know, the expenses are still there, but the income, you can't get it back, you know?
Mhm.
Well, let me ask you this. I know, so we kind of covered the main things. I really appreciate you taking your time doing this, because
Absolutely.
this is where the game's won, guys. If you're listening, this is where the game's won. But let's say somebody is from, you know, maybe they're in Hawaii, or maybe they're in Europe or something, and they're asleep and we're awake and vice versa. Is there a way for them to get a hold of you? Can they go online and
Oh,
see,
yeah.
like, rents came in today, or you paid the electric bills, or like, how does that look? What's
Yeah.
that look like? You know?
So we do have a owner portal. I believe at the close of business every day it updates, so it's not live. But when we touch on the property, or we send anybody else to the property, we let you know what's going on. And when like a resident turns in a work order, we tell you what's going on, and we tell you our action plan. Hey, we sent out so-and-so. We're going to go ahead and get a bid for from these two people. We'll send them to you when we get it. So you are always in the know, unless you're one of those owners who say, hey, please don't tell me unless it's over X amount. We get those sometimes, and
Yeah.
we work great with them because we know what they want. But yeah, just we keep them in the know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I tell you what, we're probably getting close on time here, and I know we probably actually went a wee bit over, but that's okay. I just, you know, guys, this is one of those important subjects. If you're going to invest, remember there's the acquisition part and there's a management part. And your job as an investor is to get the properties and be the owner and collect your profit. It's not to manage. I mean, I did that early on, and I learned some of the ropes, but I learned one of the main things is this: you're not making your money managing. Hire somebody, right? You know, I mean,
Three
hire a
times
company.
more.
That's it. Yeah. That's what they're good at. They're able to have systems in place, process, procedure. They got all the contacts. You know, what you spend on a monthly basis is a fraction of what it would cost you in time and energy if you were to try to do it on. I'm telling you from experience, you know.
Yeah. We carry all
Um,
the overhead and divide it between all of our clients, and that saves you all money.
that's it. Yep. So Oak Trust Properties, any final parting words of wisdom? You know, you got veterans listening, you got people who are brand new, and they're probably getting hungry now because they know they can call you. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, we love working with military. We have a 1% military discount, which, you know, can equal some good savings. And you can go to oaktrustproperties.com and download our marketing plan, see what it's all about. Give us a call. Christina's happy to chat with anybody. No pressure sales, but we're here to work for you, and we want to see you be successful. Property management is not a hobby. It can be costly if you don't do it right, and we can do it for you.
yeah. And what about, is there I know you mentioned earlier you may get into sales eventually, but what is there another person you can think of that'd be a critical partner in somebody's effort to invest? Property management again is on the management side, but what about on the acquisition and sales side? Any particular agent they should be looking for when they're out there, you know?
I don't have any investor agents. I know that we have RentWorks, who has the wholesaling here in Charleston.
Mhm.
But I don't have one that in my pocket right now for you. I wish I
Well,
did.
we'll have to take care of that. We had the team. We we have a team we run called the Global Investor Agent Team, and we do have agents in Low Country and up in upstate and even in Columbia, even up towards Rock Hill. But we don't have a single one right where you are. So we'll have to work on that, because we could definitely be partners in this. And
Yes.
actually, we should probably talk more about that, because that could be a great relationship. And we've got people all over, the investors, over 3,300 investors that work with us exclusively from around US, mainly US and partly Canada and some other countries too. So we'll have to do a separate conversation. Yeah. But for everybody listening, I just want to thank you for participating. And I know you're thankful that Janet Fields is on with Oak Trust Properties. Look them up. And it's oaktrustproperties.com. Is that right? Or
That's correct. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you want to check that out, we got a few posts up there.
Yeah, you could do a crazy tenant comedy scenes or something like that. Put those on TikTok.
Gosh.
Yeah, that could be cool. Write a book. So, but
oh my gosh, yes, so many stories.
So guys, listen, we'll see you on the next podcast. If you could, by the way, if you enjoy this, we hope you did, please leave a review for Janet Fields podcast. Okay. We love reviews. It's what makes the world go around in the world of podcasts. It just takes a minute, and we certainly appreciate it. And while you're out there, go ahead and go to globalinvestoragent.com and get yourself one of those investor agents that are trained. They're certified, by the way. It's the only place they can be certified. Okay. Everybody else is going to tell you, oh yeah, I work with investors too. But ask them if they've been trained as a certified investor agent. Okay. Then that's the key thing. And we'll see you next week. In the meantime, God bless you and your families, and God bless you too, Janet Fields, and your family.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.